8 months overseas, 8 hard months sleeping in bad beds and eating worse food, and every night I pictured home the same way: my house on the ridge, the pines, the gravel drive, and my grandfather's water tower standing behind it like it always had. Then I came back and it was gone. Not damaged, not fenced off, not waiting for repairs. Gone. Just a gray concrete slab and one laminated sign planted in the middle of it like an insult. Structure failed. Code compliance. Demolished per section 4.7. Thank you for your cooperation. I was halfway around the world when they did it, and right there with my duffel still in the truck, I understood two things. First, this was no misunderstanding. Second, whoever did it thought being absent made me weak. My name is Garrett Thorne. My family has been on that piece of Lorne County, Colorado since 1961, when my grandfather Eldon built the house and the water tower the same summer. Hand-welded tank timber frame painted barn red every spring. It fed irrigation, topped off fire tanks, and carried us through every August pressure drop. My grandfather used to say the house kept the family sheltered, but the tower kept the family alive. A few weeks before I left for East Africa, civilian infrastructure work, not military. Though I'm a veteran, I got one letter from the HOA. One. It said the tower might be aesthetically non-compliant under a new ordinance I'd never been properly notified about. That HOA was born when a developer built Ridgerest Commons and dragged older ridge properties like mine into its orbit through fine print most of us didn't read carefully enough. Its president, Claudette Voss, had the perfect smile, perfect posture, soft voice with a hard edge hiding underneath. She had opinions about fences, gravel sheds, mailbox colors, and a personal dislike for my property because it sat high enough to be seen from half her subdivision. I answered her letter by certified mail before I left. Told her the tower predated the HOA, was registered with the county as a historical agricultural fixture, and that I did not consent to inspection, removal, or modification. Then I came home to a slab. The first thing I did was take photos. Every cut stump, every patch of fresh concrete, every permit tag on my fence. Then I called my neighbor, Walt Duvall, a retired electrician who'd been checking the place while I was gone. It was there Tuesday, he said. Gone by Wednesday noon. My next call was to Renata Solis, a property rights attorney in Denver. She asked if I had the survey, the registration, and the certified mail receipt. I told her yes. She said, then they just made a very expensive mistake. Turns out an HOA can't legally demolish a pre-existing registered structure with one warning letter and a smile. Worse, the county permit had been approved in under 48 hours by a deputy inspector named Fowler. Renata told me not to sue yet. Wait, she said, let her think she won. 11 days later, the invoice arrived, $6,200 billed to me for demolishing my own family's tower. Structural remediation. Aesthetic restoration. Claudette even included a cover letter saying she hoped the matter allowed us all to move forward as a community. I laughed, then drove to the county office and started pulling records. Boring documents are patient. Soon enough, I found out Ridgerest Commons had been approved with a stormwater agreement tied to the exact area where the tower had stood. By tearing it down, the HOA had knocked part of its own drainage compliance out of line. 2 weeks later, she tried to push a zoning change through the county planning committee that would have given the HOA tighter control over anything I rebuilt. I showed up, listened to her polished little slideshow, then stood up during public comment and put one sentence on the record that my property was already the subject of active legal consultation over unauthorized demolition. The motion got tabled. Outside in the parking lot, she smiled at me like she was offering hospitality instead of a threat. We're just trying to maintain standards, Garrett. I understand completely, I said. See you at the hearing. Instead of getting careful, she got sloppy. Walt had started attending HOA meetings with his phone sitting right on the table, recording openly. One night he sent me a clip from what the board thought was a closed session. Claudette's voice came through clear as day. Thorne is going to sue. Let him. We already moved the reserve fund into beautification. If he gets a judgment, there's nothing liquid to collect. That was the twist, because suddenly this wasn't just about my tower. She'd moved HOA reserve money, belonging to every homeowner in Ridgerest Commons, to protect herself. After that, her own people started showing up at my door. One Thursday night, Bertie Oakes, a retired nurse, sat at my dining room table with the Farnsworths while my paperwork was spread everywhere. Bertie held a coffee mug in both hands and said, she changed the dues without a vote. We didn't know we could fight back. That sentence hit harder than the demolition. We didn't know. That's how people like Claudette survive, not because they're smarter than everyone else, but because everyone else assumes they must be. So we built the file. Renata documented the demolition, the permit timeline, the reserve transfer, the stormwater issue, and then I found something even better buried in old easement records. The water lateral serving all 64 homes in Ridgerest Commons crossed my land under a 20-year easement signed in 2003. It expired in 2023. Nobody renewed it. Let me be clear, I did not shut off anyone's water. What I did was have Renata send formal notice. Water kept flowing, but now it flowed under a legal cloud the county, the management company, and the HOA couldn't ignore. The same Section 4.7 Claudette used against my grandfather's tower also applied to visible external equipment on HOA property. And the Ridgerest Commons clubhouse had a rooftop HVAC unit sticking up more than 4 feet over the limit visible from the road ignored for years. Selective enforcement. Lawyer language for the rule only matters when it hurts the person you want to hurt. Bertie took that and went door to door with budget records and questions nobody had been brave enough to ask. Dues raised without a vote. Reserve funds moved. Payments tied to Claudette's sister's address. Coffee by coffee, fear turned into anger, and anger turned into organization. Within weeks, Bertie had enough signatures to force an emergency HOA meeting. On Saturday morning, the Ridgerest clubhouse was packed. 61 of 64 homeowners showed up. People lined the walls. Somebody dragged in folding chairs, and the room smelled like burned coffee. Claudette walked in at 8:55 with her binder in that same perfect posture, still acting like the room belonged to her. Bertie stood up the second the meeting opened and invoked the bylaw that says a homeowner-called meeting is controlled by the calling homeowners, not the board. Then she handed out the agenda she'd printed herself. Financial review, board conduct, structural enforcement history, recall vote. First came the money. Bertie walked the room through the numbers line by line, dues up, no vote. Reserve funds moved, vendor payments tied to Claudette's sister. People started murmuring, then openly getting mad. Then Renata read the county letter. The demolition permit had not received proper review time. The approval process was under review. Claudette tried to interrupt twice. Both times Bertie cited the bylaws. Both times Claudette had to sit down. Then came the structural report proof that the clubhouse HVAC unit violated the exact same section Claudette used to justify demolishing my tower. Renata explained selective enforcement in plain English. You don't get to ignore your own violation and weaponize the rule against somebody else. That was when the room exhaled. 60 people all at once realizing they weren't powerless, just late. Claudette stood up, voice shaking. This is a coordinated attack on the community. Bertie didn't blink. This is the community. The recall vote was by paper ballot counted in front of the room by volunteer homeowners. Claudette Voss lost 54-7. She gathered her binder, straightened her jacket, and walked to the door. Paused once, maybe hoping fear still lived in that room. It didn't. She left, and the silence after that felt better than applause. Over the next 6 months, the rest landed where it should. Deputy Inspector Fowler resigned after the county found other improperly expedited permits connected to the same development circle. The state forced an HOA audit and found homeowners had been overcharged by $31,000. Every household got a refund check. The company tied to the development settled my civil claim for $85,000, including legal fees, and the acknowledged value of the tower they never had the right to touch. I used part of that money to build a new one. Not barn red this time. Pale silver blue, the color my grandfather used to call Colorado morning. Bertie helped push through open financial reporting and homeowner votes on dues changes. Then she did something I never saw coming. She helped create a scholarship for a local senior going into environmental stewardship. We handed it out in that same clubhouse under a now compliant HVAC unit, while Walt stood in the back, pretending he wasn't crying. That's the part that stayed with me more than the money. Not because I won. Because the neighborhood woke up. That's the bitter little lesson in all this rights. Don't protect people by themselves. Paperwork doesn't save you just because it exists. Bullies and blazers count on decent people not knowing what they're allowed to question. Claudette didn't stay in power because she was brilliant. She stayed there because too many good people thought they were alone. The old slab where my grandfather's tower stood is still there. Maybe I'll turn it into a bench, maybe a garden, something quiet, something that says memory outlasts the person who tried to erase it. And I won't lie, watching that new tower catch the morning light while Claudette's name disappeared from every HOA letterhead in the county felt a whole lot like justice. Maybe karma too. But here's the question I want you to sit with when somebody abuses small power for years: is beating them by the rules enough? Or does real justice require them to feel the same fear they taught everybody else to live with? Tell me what you think. Were Garrett and the homeowners right to take her down piece by piece, or did they go too far? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA bully, a petty official, or somebody drunk on neighborhood power, share your story too, because the fastest way people like Claudette lose is when decent people stop staying quiet.